The Last Night of Peace in Europe, 1914. It is the evening of July 28, 1914, and across the continent of Europe, millions of ordinary people are doing ordinary things. In Vienna, couples are strolling along the Ringstrasse, pausing to admire the illuminated facades of the opera house and the grand museums that line the boulevard. Street vendors are selling roasted chestnuts and newspapers. Children are chasing pigeons across cobblestone squares. In Paris, the cafés along the Boulevard du Montparnasse are overflowing with artists, poets, and philosophers arguing passionately about literature and love. In London, families are sitting in their parlors after dinner, reading by candlelight, listening to the faint melody of a piano drifting through an open window. In Berlin, workers are returning home from long shifts in the factories, their boots heavy on the pavement, their minds fixed on tomorrow's wages and their children's supper. None of them know it yet. None of them can feel it. But the world they inhabit, the world they have always known, is about to be destroyed forever. The summer of 1914 had been one of extraordinary beauty. Across Western and Central Europe, the season had arrived with unusual warmth and clarity. Fields of golden wheat stretched across France and Germany. The rivers ran full and bright. It was the kind of summer that made people believe, instinctively and irrationally, that things were fundamentally good, that life was moving forward, that progress was a force as natural as sunlight. Europe in 1914 was, by almost every measurable standard, the most advanced civilization in human history. Its cities were monuments to human ambition. Its universities were producing scientists, philosophers, and engineers at a rate never seen before. Its railways connected distant capitals in a matter of hours. Its telegraph cables crisscrossed the ocean floor, linking continents in near instantaneous communication. Industrial output was soaring. Life expectancy was rising. For the educated classes especially, there existed a profound and widely shared confidence that the age of devastating wars between great powers was essentially over. That commerce, diplomacy, and mutual dependency had made such catastrophe not only unlikely, but nearly impossible. They were catastrophically wrong. Deep in the governmental palaces and military headquarters of Europe's capitals, a machinery of destruction had already been set into motion, and it was moving now with terrifying momentum. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo on June 28th had ignited a diplomatic crisis that had smoldered for nearly a month. And now, in the final days of July, the flames were breaking through the surface. Austro-Hungary had issued its ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia had responded with remarkable conciliation, accepting nearly every demand. And yet, it was not enough. In Vienna, the hawks in the Imperial Council had decided that war was the only acceptable answer. Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, reckless and insecure, had given Austro-Hungary his so-called blank check, a promise of unconditional support that effectively removed the last serious obstacle to escalation. Russia, bound by Slavic solidarity and wounded imperial pride, was mobilizing its enormous armies along its western frontiers. France, locked in a rigid alliance with Russia, was preparing to honor its commitments. And Britain, though still officially undecided, was watching the situation with growing dread, fully aware that the invasion of neutral Belgium, which German war plans absolutely required, would almost certainly drag London into the abyss as well. The men who made these decisions were not, for the most part, monsters. They were statesmen and generals shaped by decades of rigid nationalist ideology, by the social Darwinist belief that conflict between nations was inevitable and even healthy, by a military culture that venerated offensive warfare and underestimated its costs, and by a diplomatic system so tangled in secret alliances, mutual guarantees, and mobilization timetables that no single leader, even had he wished to, could easily bring the machine to a halt. They were also, many of them, simply proud. too proud to back down, too convinced that showing weakness would be more dangerous than going to war. On that last evening of peace, there were some who saw clearly what was coming. In London, the Foreign Secretary, Sir Edward Grey, stood at his office window watching the lamplighters make their rounds below, and uttered words that would echo through history. "The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime." In Vienna, the writer Stefan Zweig described the mood as both festive and terrifying, a collective madness disguised as patriotism. In Berlin, young men were gathering in the streets, singing nationalist songs, intoxicated by the promise of glory and adventure. Most of them entirely unable to imagine what modern industrial warfare would actually feel like. The mud and the gas and the machine guns and the incomprehensible industrial-scale slaughter that awaited them in the fields of France and Belgium and the forests of the Eastern Front. By August 4th, 1914, every major power in Europe would be at war. The conflict that followed would kill approximately 17 million people, wound 20 million more, collapse 4 empires, redraw the map of the world, and plant the seeds of an even more catastrophic war 20 years later. The summer of 1914 would become, in the memory of European civilization, a kind of lost Eden, the last moment of a world that had believed in itself, a world that had no idea it was already standing on the edge of its own grave, breathing the warm, golden air of its final, perfect, irretrievable night.